Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail, where you can in turn inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Today, let me introduce to you a young lady who runs for the Dalton State Roadrunners. Please welcome Kayla Mattox.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, Kayla. Kayla is going to share her story with us today, and I think that it's one that you're not going to want to miss. If you've ever doubted yourself, if you've ever wondered if you can do that hard thing, then today's episode is for you. Now, I'm going to share something about, do you ever have any cravings?
Yes.
We all have those, right?
All the time. Especially for sweet treats.
Yeah. That's usually the craving. But how about for running?
Yes.
And here's the question, is that even possible? Some people look at that and they go, that's not possible. It's not possible to crave running. But we're going to talk about that in Dean's Thoughts today. So Kayla, tell everybody about yourself.
Well, I'm a homeschool student, or I was homeschooled from 3rd grade to 12th grade. So I always like to joke with people that I was the most popular kid in school. But I'll be entering my second year at Dalton State in the degree of interdisciplinary studies, and I'll be doing a minor in health and wellness.
Cool.
I have 2 brothers. We've always lived in Ringgold, Georgia, so kind of love, family time and hang out with each other. I also love helping little kids, and I'm always looking for excuses to hang out with my friends.
I've seen that firsthand. All right. So, as always, we have a sponsor this week. And so this week, with the housing market at a recent high right now, having a reliable framing crew is essential. Someone who is honest, does what they say they will do, and someone who can get the job done with excellence. And that is Jess Burgess Framing Company. He has all those qualities. So if you're a developer or a contractor, or you need something done and you need a framer in the Dalton-Whitfield County area, call Jess Burgess for the best framing crew around. And we have a Facebook post from last week. And if you recall, just a few weeks ago, we had John Sandifer on this very podcast. And John Sandifer has this Facebook post, and if you heard John's story, you know that John had some struggles that he had to get through. And he posts this from Gilkey, North Carolina. Found a nice rail trail in the foothills of North Carolina to get a nice long run. Thermal belt rail trail. Beautiful day and beautiful countryside. I love finding beautiful little churches out in the country. Before I set out on my run, a young man, I'd say 30s, approached me asking for money. I sat down and talked to him for a while, and he opened up about his problem with alcohol. Any of you that heard my story on the podcast a couple of weeks ago know that I've had my struggles with alcohol in the past. I tried to see if I could get him to some help, but he seemed to know all the local resources and just needed the motivation to use them. He let me pray with him and told me that he'd pray more on his own for direction. I'm asking for prayers today for Jeff in Ruth, North Carolina, that he would turn to God for healing and use the help that is available to him. I pray that God put me in his path for a reason to nudge him in that right direction. The experience made my run a long prayer for Jeff and of gratitude for the change God has made in my life. And I tell you, wearing the Run for God shirt really helps this natural introvert more proactively step outside of myself to reach out to others. This is truly my why. Thank you, God. I don't know why it always amazes me when God puts these things together. This happens to me all the time where I run into somebody and they just need to hear the same thing that I've been through, right? And they just need to hear a positive word. And it's amazing how God does that. Have you ever experienced that, Kayla?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to when people just come into your life, it seems like at the right time, and you just needed, their encouragement, or you just needed them even to just help push you through something. And yeah, I've had a couple of those experiences.
We're going to talk about a little bit of that in your story, actually. So it's amazing. Whenever I put these things together, and we've said this before on this podcast, I don't plan for all the stories to mesh. I don't do that. But God does, right? And so he takes that Facebook post that I had picked out before you wrote your story, and they go together so well. And it's neat to see God work like that. I think about, I've been... in this case, I've told the story before about how I went from doing a job making a certain amount of money to doing a job making half that amount of money, and how God has just provided. And I've just trusted him to provide, and he does. And it's funny how God will put these people in front of me who are worried about doing something different because they're worried that making less money is going to cause them trouble. Yeah. I'm like, let me tell you what can happen. And God gives me that opportunity to share my story. So it's really cool. The trivia question from last week, it was this. Something unusual happened in the semifinals of the 400-meter run in the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. What was it, and who was involved? And what I'm gonna do, hopefully for the video, if you're listening to this on podcast, you won't see it, but if you're watching the video, I'm gonna try to put this incident on the screen while we talk about it, because it was really inspirational. And I was trying to go through it and watch it myself, and I can't watch it without tearing up. I mean, it's just so good. So if you're listening to this on a podcast and you're not watching the video, you need to go find this particular video. And anyway, the guy's name is Derek Redmond. He was running for Great Britain, and he had this dream to make it to the finals and compete for a medal in the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games. Well, he was running in the semifinal heat. He's one step away from the final, and something happened. He gets about, 20 seconds or so into his run, and all of a sudden, he pulls up with his hamstring. If you've ever watched that happen to somebody on the track, and especially a sprinter, you know what it looks like, right?
It looks real painful.
It's painful. You just start hopping, and you grab that hamstring, and you can't keep running. Matter of fact, I shared on this podcast that I had a marathon recently where my hamstring seized up on me. It's nothing you can do. You cannot run. So anyway, he pulls up, he squats down in his lane, and people start coming to his aid. And then all of a sudden, you see, with these people all gathered around him, he just kind of pops out of this crowd, and he starts hopping down the track. He can barely put any weight on that leg, but he's just kind of hopping down the track. And it's like, you can see in his eyes, it's like, I came here to finish this thing, I'm going to finish. And so that's what he does. He wants to finish. And I can imagine his entire life, he was probably taught, don't give up. Right? You can just picture this guy that his father probably put this in his brain is you never give up, never give up. And that's what was driving him to get up and go finish this thing. And of course, all of a sudden he comes around the back stretch and around that last turn, and his father, you can see his father in the background coming out of the stands. Wow. And you can see officials kind of chasing him down and telling him, you can't get on the track. And him like, that's my son, I'm going.
Yes.
And you can see the official, it's kind of like, I don't know what to do. And he kind of lets him go. And anyway, the officials, they try to stop him. And every parent understands the need to get out there in that moment. And as he gets to Derek, the moment just completely overwhelms him, and Derek just starts to sob uncontrollably. And you can just see the look in his eyes as like, my Olympic dream is done, but I got to finish this thing. And he and his father, they start to walk, and his father puts his arm around him, and he just kind of tries to help him to the finish line. The officials are still trying to talk his dad out of getting off the track, and he's just not going anywhere except where Derek is going. He finishes. There's these huge cheers from the crowd as he finishes. And, very few people know who won that heat of the 400 meters in the Olympic trials, in the Olympics. But everybody knows about Derek Redmond. It was heartbreaking and inspirational at the same time. it was inspirational because, we've all had moments where we've had that choice where something hit us so hard and we just felt like it was impossible to finish it. But we have to make that choice. Do we keep going? Do we try to finish it? Or do we just give up? And he made that choice to go to the finish. It made all the difference. We know who he is today because of that. Now, if he had made it to the finals and he had finished 5th in the finals, let's say, we wouldn't even know who Derek Redmond is today. But we know who Derek Redmond is because of his persistence and because of his father's need to help his son get to that finish line. I just think it's an awesome story. And it's even more awesome when you watch it in person. So, yeah. So what do you think about that story? What do you think about?
Well, as an athlete, I know how much time and energy and training you put into any race. And so to have it all taken away just by one incident and knowing that it was really nothing you did, it just happened. It kind of hurts because it's you spent all of that time and all of the energy and but then knowing that you just have that drive built into you that you just want to finish. And I know what it's been to have a race and have something happen and just like that, you can't run it anymore and it's nothing you could have done. You want everything in you to just finish it. Even if you don't qualify or something, just finishing it is such a reward. Yeah.
Especially when it becomes so hard. And I've run a number of marathons. I know you've never run a marathon.
No.
But there's times I've been in marathons where I've been at 18 miles and thought, I don't know how I'm going to finish. I just don't know how I can possibly finish this race. And all you can do is focus on the next step.
Yeah.
And focus on the next mile. But just the struggle is real.
Yeah.
And life is that way too. There's a lot of times where we get involved in something and it doesn't go like we want it to, and we want to give up.
Right.
And it's important. That's why I really believe that for you as an athlete, as a college athlete, as a high school athlete even, I think the things that you learn as an athlete are so valuable and bleed into everything else you do in your life, because I think there are a lot of people who give up too quickly.
Yeah.
And most of those people who give up too quickly in life are people who probably weren't athletes when they were younger, because they never got faced with what Derek Redmond got faced with. And what you've been faced with and what I've been faced with. They've just never seen it. So they don't know that you can push through that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you're told a lot of times that your mind's going to quit before your body does.
That's right.
And so if you don't know that and if you've never been trained in that, then you will quit before, when your mind tells you to quit, you will quit. And you won't know that. You can still push yourself a little bit further.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Talk about pushing yourself a little further. You participated in a national championship event this year, didn't you?
I did.
Was that pretty cool?
That was so cool. I never in a million years would have dreamed of doing that.
And I think everybody's going to understand that a little bit more in context here as we get to your story. Because you had good reason to believe that wouldn't be where you would be at any particular time. But you are a vital part of that team that finished 18th in the nation.
Wow.
So
that's still amazing to think about.
Yeah, but so to go from where you were a year before to being on that team and being again an integral part of that team, pretty amazing. So if you're out there and you're wondering if there's something in front of you that is just insurmountable, that you just don't see any way you can do it, take my word for it. You're going to hear a story here in just a little bit that's going to tell you that you might be able to overcome that thing. But before that, we're going to get to J Radio. We've told you before, it is the world's greatest digital music platform, and there is a Run for God channel. I have a playlist on there. Who knows? Maybe we could talk Kayla into submitting a playlist and put Kayla's playlist up there too. But go out there, listen to J Radio, And you will love it, I promise.
As a mom, I want to make sure we choose a cereal that's not entirely derived from sugar. Their car seats have to be nationally CPS certified, and their first car has to have every possible safety feature known to man. I just want to do my best to make sure that they're safe. One thing I don't have to worry about is the content they hear on J Radio. Not only do they love the music, but I know it's only going to be a positive message that I would approve of. Now, if I could just figure out how to get my youngest from sticking everything up his nose.
Sign up at jradio.com and download the new J Radio app in your app store.
Okay, so we're back. Now, I think that most people believe that every college athlete is somebody who is born with this amazing talent and just grew up, and it just comes easy to them. We've all seen that athlete, right? That everything
Yes.
looks like it's easy, right?
Yes.
That's not necessarily your story, is it?
No, it's not.
So let me ask you this. We talk all the time on this podcast about going outside of your comfort zone. That's something that we call it the comfort zone for a reason, right?
Right.
How far have you had to go outside of your comfort zone to be where you are today?
Real far. It's amazing to think the things that I've pushed myself through out of that comfort zone, and it's made me, create a new comfort zone. And so the things that were out of my comfort zone, maybe a couple years ago, now I do it all the time. And so now, you're just constantly pushing your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is going a little bit further, a little bit faster, a little bit further, right?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So Kayla is going to share her story. And actually, she sent her story to me, and she didn't have it titled, so I titled it The Kayla Mattox Story. So here is Kayla's story.
Yeah, so when I started running cross country in 8th grade, I was doing it because I needed a PE class. My friend, and I have that in quotes, of mine ran on a team in Chattanooga and somehow convinced me to join the cross country team. I remember showing up to my first practice and being absolutely terrified, even though everyone there was extremely nice and inviting. To say I was not the best runner is an understatement. I went from sitting in my room doing nothing to running almost every day. I probably wouldn't have run on the non-practice days if it wasn't for my dad. He was the one to get me to run on the days off, and it started to become something that we would do together. My first 2-mile race, I didn't even finish. That was when my mom told me to set a small goal. She gave me the challenge to run my next meet without stopping to walk. So that became my first challenge. But the team and the relationships I made the first year were the reason I decided to continue to run in high school. My freshman year of high school, things started going downhill. I had set my goal for running without stopping, but there was still a mental barrier. I was already talking negatively to myself because running was not coming easy for me, even though I had great coaches, encouraging parents, and awesome teammates. I was watching teammates and my brother, who started running the same year I did, break their personal best times and win all these medals. And I was coming in almost the last place, running 30-minute 5Ks. In my head, I didn't see how I could ever break 30 minutes and be a standout runner. With all the negative self-talk I was giving myself, I also had that one person who never failed to point out my problems and tell me what she thought of me. There's a saying that you could be told 20 good things, but one negative thing someone says about you will stick out the most, and that is exactly what happened. I think and meditate on the words people tell me. She told me that I couldn't do certain workouts without stopping, that the only reason I was running on the varsity team was because we didn't have a JV team, and that I would never be good enough to run collegiately, much less earn a scholarship, and she would. When you are told things like that consistently, you start to believe them yourself, and it showed in my running. So I told myself that after high school, I was done with running because I could never be good enough to be a college runner. I remember my last meet of junior year, my coach came up to me and told me that if I tried hard enough and put in the work, I could run collegiately. With the negative mentality I had already developed, I obviously didn't believe her and said that I would never do that. A couple months later, I had one of the team moms come up to me and ask if I had ever considered running in a college. And she shared her athletic college experience, how many people she had met, the friendships she made, and the places she went. After that, I started to consider the possibility, but I still wasn't convinced that I could be good enough. By the end of my senior cross-country season, I saw just how much time I had cut off. I was now running 23-minute 5Ks. In my mind, the only way to be a college runner was if the coach came and recruited you. That is not true. Sometimes you have to put yourself out there. When trying to pick a college, I couldn't get the thought of doing school and running on a team out of my head. After all, I had been doing that for the past 5 years. I had finally fallen in love with the sport and wanted to see how far I could go. I emailed Dean with the heading, Future Lady Roadrunner, hoping that would get his attention and maybe hear from him in a couple of days. Nope, I received a response within the hour. Little did I know that would be the first hurdle on this new journey I was on. Dean will be the first to tell you, and he often will, that I was not in the greatest shape that first practice, and I even questioned what I had gotten myself into and if I could even do this. I got into Dalton State and was now running as a lady roadrunner. Though I was technically considered a walk-on, that did not stop me from wanting to push myself. My first college meet, I ran a 24:35, but by the end of the season, I had improved my personal best to a 20:43. I was getting out of my comfort zone even on the track, running the 800 meter, the 4x100 meter, and the 1500, which were all new races for me. It was true that I had met a lot of new people that were great friends in pushing me and encouraging me. I remember being at a local high school track meet with some friends, and the conversation got brought up about being on scholarship. I told them that I was not on scholarship, and their mouths dropped in shock. They said, "Wait, you're not getting paid to run? You're just out here for fun?" Truthfully, I'd never thought of it that way. I was showing up to every practice, not because I was getting paid, but because I wanted to prove to myself and to others that I was capable of being a scholar college runner as anyone else. Yes, I was doing it because I wanted to, not because I had to. Some would say that I have every right to be angry at the person that hurt me, and I do. However, I have chosen to be grateful not only for the difficult person in my life, but also for the encouraging people that I have, like my coaches and my friends. I wouldn't be the person I am today without those people and the experiences I went through, both good and bad. I have learned not to care as much what other people think of me because that is not why I was put on this earth. I was put on earth to glorify God, and what He thinks and says about me is far more important. I also learned to set small goals that lead to a greater goal. In the past couple of months, I have met some great people who have taught me so much and have gotten me out of my comfort zone. God puts the right people in your life at the right time. God doesn't promise Christians an easy life, but He does promise to provide and be with us.
What a good story, and what a story of triumph. I don't know if people hear those times, they don't know anything about, a lot of people don't know anything about times. To go from 24 and a half minutes down to under 21 minutes is a long, long, long way, first of all. To be under 21 minutes is way, way more than what I think that you ever thought you would be. I got your it's funny. I just recently saw that, I forget what we called it, that questionnaire that you send in.
Yeah.
That you answer a bunch of questions and you put in your PRs in there. Well, that PR, it said your PR was 23:05 for 5K and 7 minutes for 1600. And now you look back at that and you go, 20, really? Wow. You know?
Yes.
It's a big deal. And I do remember, and as you mentioned, I bring up that first practice every once in a while.
I think it's more than every once in a while.
Every once in a while, I bring that one up.
I think that's your favorite story to tell.
Yeah, I think so. It is a good one. Yeah, so that first practice, you
can't think of it without laughing.
I can't. And we laugh about this all the time. And I always hope Kayla takes this well, and she always seems to take it well. So before you hear this, just understand there's a lot of context that's gone in before this. But the first day that Kayla was there, I ran with her that day. And it was hard to run with her that day. It's hard to run with her that day, mostly because we were running so slow. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if this girl's going to make it. and so anyway, that first day I was like, I just don't know. And then I just remember she improved really quick and got better really fast. And I remember I was having a conversation too, talking about somebody else on the team. I pointed somebody else out on the team to you and said, that's where she is right now is where you need to be next year.
Yeah, and you told me that, and I was like, oh, my stars, I don't know if I can do that.
Right. But you ran faster than she ran her freshman year. So there you go. You did it because you could. So let me ask you this. Have you gone back to that person who had these negative thoughts and said anything to her?
No, I haven't. At the end of the day, God knows where both of our hearts were in the situation. And, I don't need the acknowledgement from her that she was wrong about me. You can't flame a fire that's already been put out. And sometimes you just have to walk away and move on. I know when I was reading this question, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember a Bible verse popped into my head. It's Genesis 50:20, and it says, but as for you, you meant it evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is that day, to save many people. And so I just think, just like Joseph didn't, hold a grudge against his brothers, sometimes you just have to be the bigger person and just walk away from a situation.
That's awesome. So now is she running in college?
No. No. In fact, she quit like 2 years before senior year. So I was like,
All right. Yeah. But it's all good. And what a great perspective, too. I love, and that verse, man, that fits that perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever thought of that verse I know I haven't thought of it in that context, but in that context, that's great. And you mentioned in there you didn't see how you could ever break 30 minutes at one point.
Yeah.
And I want to say to the people that are out there that listen to this podcast, a lot of them have goals. Their goal may be just to run a 5. They can't see how they could possibly ever run 3 miles without stopping. Some people think they can't do, insert whatever it is. Everybody's got a different level. And you truly, at one point, honestly, couldn't see how you could run under 30 minutes. And you're so far past that now that it's like the difference between walking a mile and running a marathon almost. It's such a huge chasm between what you've accomplished and what you've done versus what you thought you could do.
Yeah.
So I want people out there to understand that if you're in that boat and you're in that boat where, okay, I want to try to run a marathon, and I've never run anywhere near 10 miles before. Can I do that? You can do so much more than you believe that you can often. And it's just a matter of being persistent, right?
Right.
Because that's what you did. You just got...
Yeah, and I think also, what helps is, I've told you, I have a long-term goal of, being in the 19s by the time I am a senior. And you can't, sometimes if you think about that, you can just get overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do that. That seems like so hard. But if you set like smaller goals for yourself, so like I did, I set the goal of, just run this without stopping. Yeah. And then once you hit that, then you can start to be like, okay, I just want to knock like 5 seconds off that time. And if you keep doing that, then eventually, you're going to get to that point and you're going to get to that goal that you ultimately set for yourself. So
eventually, you'll set the world record at that pace. No, but seriously, that's a great way to look at it. Take things in small bites instead of one big lump, right? And
my mom often tells me, "How do you eat an elephant, Kayla? Piece
right.
by piece."
That's right, one bite at a time. That is a fact. So, just so you know, I don't know if you know this, but I have talked with your coach.
Oh no, really?
And he expects you to be under 20 minutes. This year rather than your senior year. So I'm just saying. And he feels pretty confident about it from what I understand.
Yeah. Good, because now that I see that I can do that, we're going to change up that plan.
There you go. And just so everybody out there knows, I don't share scholarship information, specific scholarship information about our athletes, but I will tell you this. Kayla did earn a scholarship this year based on her performance and what she did out there on the cross-country course. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I don't do stuff for free, do I?
No.
I make you earn it, but you earned it for sure. And I have to say this, too. I've seen you do over and over again. I've seen you step outside your comfort zone. This is one of those times. This cannot be the most comfortable place for you to be right now.
No, it's not.
But you're here.
Yes.
And you've consistently done that over this year as you've stepped outside your comfort zone. Is that something new for you? Or
yes.
I thought so.
Yes, very new. I was very content with telling people no because I didn't want to feel awkward and have those awkward moments. And I think now I've just learned to embrace the awkwardness because it's gonna come.
Yeah.
And it's a part of growing up is just putting yourself out there and putting yourself in awkward situations. So
yeah, well, and it's been worth it, hasn't it?
Yes,
it's been totally worth it for sure.
I think I don't want to live with any regrets, and so by saying no, you're not. You could regret doing something and you never know what could come from putting yourself out there.
That's right. Right. The pain of not knowing, to me, is worse than the pain of going through it.
Yeah.
Is kind of the way I look at it. We got some scripture references here. Of course, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Do you believe God has a plan for you? And do you think that God's plan for you included Dalton State College?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible says, God knew you before you were even, knit in your mother's womb. So if he knew that, he has to have a plan for me. It's just, I don't know that plan yet. And so, Dalton State was most definitely where I needed to be in my years of college.
Well, another thing I've heard from your coach is that he's very glad you're there. Yeah, I love this verse. Jeremiah here in this verse is telling the Israelites that God has all these great plans for them, but he knows, because Jeremiah is telling them, they're going to wind up in captivity in Babylon at the same time that he's delivering this message. Talk about outside your comfort zone. I mean, think about having to deliver a message to somebody. Now, I realize that over the next several years, you're going to be miserable. But let me tell you what's down the road, right? I mean, how do you preach that message?
And that's not very encouraging to be like, you're going to be miserable. Like, who wants to be miserable?
It's kind of like telling somebody they're going to have to run the steeplechase at the conference meet when they've never run it before.
I wonder who's done that before.
Could that ever happen?
Yes.
But that was really outside of somebody's comfort zone,
yes.
wasn't it? And but how did it turn out?
It's so good.
It turned out great, didn't it?
Yes.
And so, getting outside of your comfort zone and we got to search for that, because God will reveal his plan to us. But it's not like a document that we get in the mail.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it? We have to look for it, and we have to be intentional about looking for it. Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Of course, as part of a team, you get to see that all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love to see you guys when you guys are supporting each other. I mean, you are a whole team of women. And anytime you get a bunch, women or men for that matter, you get a bunch of people together, and there's always going to be a little bit of this, maybe some friction every once in a while. But when it comes time for competition, y'all are really, really good about supporting one another, aren't you?
Yes.
It's really good to see. Do you feel like it's part of your responsibility as a teammate to help build others up?
Oh, absolutely. Cross country is an individual sport and wanting to cut times off, but it's also a team sport. And, I've found that, just because I'm struggling with something, somebody else on the team could be struggling with that too. And it's easier to give someone else advice than it is to take your own advice. And so, just pushing each other and knowing that, like, even though you're all out on the course together, like, I know that the other girls are cheering for me in their head, and they want me to do, as good as I can do, because they want that for me, but also it, helps the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love too is I like it when we've got, I know for a fact that, our number one runner on our team, she's a freshman as well. And I know she's really supportive of you.
Yes.
And wanting you to do well.
Yes.
And she has every right to go, I'm worried about myself, but she takes time to worry about you too. Doesn't it feel good to hear words of encouragement from her as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had this saying all year, freshman power, because it was just me and her, and having someone there that, is better than you to help push you. She could have just been like, yeah, you're on your own. Haha, try to catch me. But she's not that way, which is really nice.
And I don't think we have anybody on the team that's that way.
No, we don't.
We certainly have some inner, we have some inner squad battles where people are trying to beat people. And I get that. Yeah. And that's good. That's good, healthy competition.
Yeah, I can't remember what race it was, but I had a race and we were running our warm up. And one of the girls looked at me and she told me, she was like, if you can pass me. Mm-hmm. Do it. Because she knew that, if she couldn't do it, she wanted the team to do good. Right. And so that's when she told me that. And I was like, okay.
And you beat her that day.
I think so.
I think you beat her that day.
Yeah.
And the only time you beat, I think that was the only time you were in the top 5, part of the scoring team. Yeah. For the year. And you were in the top 5 early in the year when we had one that was injured.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it feels good to be a part of a team and be a part of a team where the person that you beat feels good about you beating them.
Right.
Right. That's always really cool. So this wouldn't necessarily be a teammate. Who's your favorite person to hear positive things from?
Oh, gosh, you're going to make me pick a favorite. You're going to get me in trouble.
Not necessarily a teammate. Doesn't have to be a teammate.
I've been so lucky to have the support system that I have. My parents and my family, they've always been supportive in, anything that I've set out to do. And then I had amazing high school coaches that really, pointed me in the direction and that I needed to go. I also had this, what I called my mom squad, which was a bunch of the high school moms that would just pour into me. And, if one of them was always at the finish line, to hug me and to catch me and to make sure I was okay. And so I still get texts from them occasionally, just like encouraging me and always wanting to know like where I'm going to be, how my meets are going. And so it's just been amazing to have the support system that I've had. In fact, I know, I wouldn't be able to do what I did without my support system in place.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So what do you think are some of the ways that we can help make each other better? I mean, that's really ultimately the goal in a team sport, right? Is trying to help each other get better. So how do you do that?
I think, obviously with, verbally encouraging each other and just knowing that sometimes you just have to put things aside. Mm-hmm. When you hang out with someone and you travel with them and you're stuck on the bus with them and then you're stuck in a hotel room with them, it's easy to pick up on the little things, the nagging things, and just understanding that like you just have to put that away and know, what you're doing. And I think that's how. Yeah.
And I think that I think there's a lot of ways that we can support people and try to help make others better, and of course verbal support is a good way, and a lot of times we can use verbal support when we're really down. I had something that happened to me last week that was really, really discouraging. It was a really super discouraging thing, and my wife was like, "It's okay. We'll get through this. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it." And as guilty as I felt, because the problem that was there was something that I caused, and but she was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And having somebody there to always kind of scoop you up off the ground when you're laying on the ground is always good, right? I think about that person when you get through. Sometimes you guys get through that really, really hard workout and you want to lay down on the ground.
Yes.
And of course, I know I always walk over to you and I lift you back up and go, "Come on, let's get up on our feet." Yeah. And but it's good to have somebody like that, right?
Yes.
To have somebody who's willing to pick you up when you're down and it's hard and it's hard to get to that next thing. And you got some of those things where sometimes you just put yourself out there. You mentioned that's what you did in getting to run. You just said, "You know what? I'll take a shot. Let me see what they say."
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you had it all to do over again, you wouldn't do it any different.
No.
Because it worked out great. So I remember a particular incident back. It's been a couple of years ago. This is one of the girls on the team. You don't know about this incident, but I had our team run basically in 2 packs on purpose. And so the goal was this pack of 3. One would lead the first mile, was assigned to lead the first mile. Then there was one assigned to lead the second mile and one that was assigned to lead the third mile. That was the way I wanted them to run this particular race. So we had 2 groups like that, and then we had one that was in the front. But they ran that way. And this one girl was like, she ran that race and she ran really well, and she was like, "I didn't know I could run with them." I knew she could run with them.
Yes.
She didn't know that she could run with them, and so she did it. And it changed the trajectory of everything she's done since then. Because now it's like, it doesn't matter who's ahead of her. Now she thinks she can run with everybody. And it's really cool to watch that. But that all comes from somebody. In this case, I mean, I'm not bragging on myself, but I could see that in her, right?
Yeah.
And I knew she had it in her, and all she had to do was see it.
Right.
And that's the mechanism that was used for her to be able to see that. And it was so
It's
awesome.
kind of like just a switch in your brain. Like and it'll hurt, but as long as you can just get to that point and push yourself just a little bit further past that point, then it's just like it opens up like this whole new like, whoa, I didn't know this was on the other side.
Yeah. It's like, have you ever seen the Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Of course you have. You're a homeschool student. You've seen all the you've seen all the classic movies, because that's the way you guys are, and that's awesome. And I'll mention to everybody out there, we have 3 homeschool girls on our team, and I'll take more. So if you're out there and you're a homeschool high school runner, and you want to run somewhere, we got a place for you. Yeah. So anyway, you remember in Wizard of Oz where it's all black and white, and then all of a sudden the door opens up and it's color.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is when you push past that point, right? The door opens up. It's like, wow, it's a whole new world. Proverbs 4:26. Ponder the path of your feet, and then all your ways will be sure. Planning. Are you good at planning?
I like to think that I'm good at planning, and I am, but the execution can kind of fall through a little bit.
Well, my problem, I'm the opposite. I'm not great at planning, but I can usually execute.
Yeah.
Even when I haven't planned.
Yeah,
so
I
if
know.
I'm kind of put on this, you know how I am.
I do.
Y'all are so patient with me. Yeah, the execution part is my strength. I can be put in a bad position, and I feel like I can get through it just based on because I don't plan that well. Here's what I think about planning. Okay, this is an argument I used to have with a friend of mine. So a guy that worked for me at one time, he was a safety and training manager, and I asked him one day. He said he got on to me about putting stuff off and not planning stuff until the last minute. And I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, now, if let me say that you're gonna teach a class a month from now. What are you gonna do today? He said, well, I'm gonna plan the class out. I'm gonna pull all my notes together, and I'm gonna have it all done probably within the next week. I said, that's right. I said, so the day before you teach that class, what are you gonna do? He said, well, I'm gonna pull my notes back out, and I'm gonna go back over them. I'm gonna make sure I've got everything down. I said, yeah, that's right. I get that done in one step.
Yes, okay, Dean.
Anyway, pondering our path is one of those things that sometimes that's hard, right? Because the world tells us our path should be in one direction when God's got our path going in a completely different direction. And that makes it hard, doesn't it? But as a homeschool student, you're kind of used to taking a different path. You really are. And I say that complimentary because I was talking with one of our homeschool ladies this morning. We were running, and we were talking about something that had happened and talking about GPS watches and stuff. And she said, well, when she first started running, she didn't have a GPS watch. Right. Even though they were available at that time, she didn't have one because her family was kind of old school. Yeah. And it was like, yeah. So she understands running at a different level because she didn't always have technology to rely on, which a lot of runners today, particularly your age, have that technology that you've always been able to rely on. Right. She didn't have that. And it makes her a better runner today because of it. So how do you stay away from the things of the world that want you to go down a different path? You're of that age where it's a lot harder than it is for somebody my age. Right. So how do you do that?
It takes a lot of self-control.
By the way, everybody, if you can hear thunder in the background, we are having a rainstorm here, so just bear with us. We're going to go right through it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of self-control, and it takes a really strong faith-based foundation because, you're out in the world now, and so you're kind of surrounded by it. And if you don't have that strong foundation, and if you don't have those standards set for yourself of, I'm not going to allow myself to do that, if you don't have that, it is very easy to just slip into it. And I think something that has helped me, is I still live at home. So I drive to college every day. I don't live on campus. And, I've seen people who do live on campus and they fell through those cracks. And luckily they were able to pick themselves back up. But, when you're just surrounded by it, it's so easy to fall into the college life, quote unquote, because you're surrounded by it 24/7.
Yeah, yeah. So, as you say, it's become a lot harder, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because when you were homeschooled, you weren't exposed to nearly as much as you are today.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so I've noticed how, as with most homeschool students, your parents were really, really tight on you at the beginning of the year, and they've loosened up a lot.
Yes.
To this point, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. But you've earned that too. Just like you earned that scholarship money, you've earned that by keeping away from the ways of the world and doing the right things. And they see that and they realize that, we raised a pretty responsible young lady. Psalm 1:1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. You did a really good job of not allowing the negativity of somebody to guide what you did. And that's what this is. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. Blessed is the person who doesn't listen to those people who will say negative things about us, right?
Right.
And that's what you did. Was it hard to get to that point, though? After hearing that, was it hard for you to go from being beat up to the point of getting through that to the other side?
Oh, absolutely. There were times where I just wanted to give up. I didn't want to, keep pushing myself because I was just tired. And it just got to a point where I was just like, I'm so tired. I just want to give up. But, you have to realize giving up would have been the easy way out. Walking away from it and giving up would have been the easy way. And hindsight's always 20/20. So, I can sit here and be like, oh yeah, whatever. That happened. But, at the time it was hard. Yeah. And, it really messed with my mindset of, friends and, how I am supposed to treat friends and how I am supposed to be treated by true friends. And, I think if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be the person and have the mindset that I do today. Yeah. And, I now know, how I'm supposed to treat friends, and I have a standard for, how I want to be treated as a friend. So
that's great. That is a great perspective and way to look at it. Sometimes it's really difficult to stay away from what in this verse he calls the wicked, because the wicked is all around us. It's kind of all over the place. And sometimes it's really, really difficult to stay away from that. And it's because, and especially at your age, you've probably got some folks that are trying to pull you in those directions on occasion. And it's hard to stay away from that when somebody's trying to pull you there and going, it's all good, it's all okay, I promise, nothing bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But you're fortunate to be surrounded. The group of friends that you have on the team, they're pretty good girls.
Yeah.
You're not being pressured that much by them, which is fantastic. But then sometimes we don't even recognize the wicked. For example, this girl, when you recognize that as being negative, but you didn't realize exactly why God would put something like that in your life at that time, did you?
Right, yeah. I don't know. I know I said it and I had it typed out. I had her as a air quote friend. Yeah. And because it's easy to say you are a certain person, but the way your actions are is really what matters. Yeah. And so, you can say, oh yeah, I'm your friend, I'm here for you. But if their actions don't match it, then their word, really means nothing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Good way to put it. I think this is the way that a lot of people fall into things like addiction. When somebody becomes addicted, let's say it's just alcohol, and you become addicted to alcohol, I think that happens because, obviously it starts somewhere.
Right.
And you start down that road, but then you just keep convincing yourself that wicked thing that's going to cause you problems eventually is not the wicked thing that it is.
Right.
And you don't see it for that.
And that's how Satan works. He tempts you with this one little thing, like, oh, this apple, it's nothing. Like, just eat it. It's okay. And then before you know it, you've fallen so far away, and you really have to be intentional about, going back to the Lord and getting back on the right path.
Yep. He is insidious for
Yes.
sure. Some questions. Can you look back on your life and see the people God placed in your path for your good? And then the second question is, did you see it at the time? So it's easy. You just mentioned several people that were in your life that you recognize now. Did you recognize them at the time?
No. I think, I was young. I was probably like 12. And so at that age, you're kind of oblivious to the underlying thing. You just see people as who they are. Yeah. And no, I didn't know. Right. You were so fortunate and just didn't understand that at the time. Right. And it's that way with so many of us. As adults, we're the same way. I've told the story on here before about how I worked for a company for 25 years and then found myself without a job all of a sudden, basically. That's real easy to go, oh my gosh, I'm a loser. It's real easy to look at that and think that there's you not being able to see the way out, not being able to figure out, why in the world would God do this to me? Why would God allow me? I'm pretty faithful. I hadn't done anything to God. Why did He put me at this point? Yeah. And then fast forward, a year later, I'm working with Run for God, and a year after that, I'm working with Dalton State, and I love what I do now. I never would have done that. I never would have left what I was doing to go to that because of the difference in the amount of pay, and I would have thought there's no way I can afford to do that. Right. But God had to prove to me that all that could work out. Yeah. There's this saying, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Yeah. And I've heard so many different people who either agree with it or disagree with it. And, my vision of it is, God does give you more than you can handle, but He doesn't give you more than He thinks you can handle. Because you have just this small mindset of what you think you can handle. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to, just pushing yourself outside the boundaries and knowing that you can handle more than you think you can. Mm-hmm. You can't handle more than God can handle. Right. That's basically where the way I've always looked at it. That particular saying. And I used to have a lady that worked for me one time. I used to love it. She used to say, when she was a little girl, her grandmother would say, "Now God won't put more on you than you can handle." And she would be crying and she'd be going, "But Grandma, I think He's got me confused with somebody else." That's great. It's not so easy to see when somebody's a negative person and they're in your life and negative things happen. It's a lot harder to see that as being a good thing because it's negative by definition. Do you remember any other times when God put somebody in your path for something that maybe it wasn't running related, but there's somebody that just came into your life at the right time? Oh, yeah. Yeah? Even recently, I was terrified to come into college because I had a great group of friends and I didn't know if I would get a great group of friends, which, again, I've been very lucky to have those friends. But even friends that are way younger than me, that are still in high school, I met them even a couple months ago, and they have helped me so much just to really be able to find who I am again and really, be able to point me, back to reading my Bible and getting back in the Word and knowing that I couldn't just let that one person define all of the other friends because there are good people out there. Yeah. And so, yes, I've had, even still, people come into my life at the right time. That's awesome. Do you remember ever being that person? I think she quit before I could beat her, actually.
I think because I think sometimes I see it all the time. Where again, and we mentioned it before, God puts me in a position at a particular time. I think, and I think it's cool to be that person, not the negative one, but the positive one that tries to help motivate somebody.
Yeah,
and is there for somebody. How do you stop the negative thoughts that the evil one puts in our heads? That's here's the way I always look at it. The closer we are to God, the easier it is to eschew the things of the evil one. I just, the more I'm focused on my Bible study and really getting into the Word, the more that I spend time in prayer, the better off I am, and the easier it is for me to kind of shrug off those negative thoughts that come into your head automatically, because Satan's just lobbing those things into your brain constantly, right? And I always looked at it this way. Here's one thing that's for sure, is that if you are far away from God, it's not because He moved.
Yes.
It's because we moved. And so I always have to remember that and go, okay, I need to get back to what I'm doing. It's a little bit like when if you're not running well because you didn't run during the summer, it's not the coach's fault.
Really?
Right?
Oh, man.
I need to get you to agree to that. We just have to be purposeful about it, I think, in order to get those negative thoughts out. And I think we all have those moments. I'm one of those people who, when I get under pressure and things aren't going well, things are getting out of control, maybe somebody's waiting for you, or like, I'll give you an example. I'm doing these Facebook Live session, and all of a sudden the whole thing cuts off on me. And then it was when we were doing YouTube, and I can't get back on there, and I would get so frustrated with it because, and I've just, in hindsight, I look back and I go, that was just Satan just getting in there and just putting something. And I would come back on, and everybody would come back, and everybody would be so kind. And they would say, these things happen. And I'm like, they're not supposed to happen. Everything's supposed to be perfect.
I think we talked about at that one practice, too, and it was just me and you. I don't even remember what exactly, but, it was because I thought to myself, like, in order to be considered a good Christian, you had to read your Bible every day and constantly be in prayer. And, that's all good, but just because you don't do that doesn't make you a bad Christian. And, that was Satan getting in my head and being like, you're not good enough because you're not in your word every day. And it is a struggle to be in your word every day and read your Bible and pray. You have to be intentional about it. Mm-hmm. And, that's just Satan just getting in there and getting in your head. And it's so hard to just, push past it.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, it's so many parallels to running. Man, oh man. And do you ever catch yourself going in that negative direction, and just before you really get there you go, not going there? Yeah, happens all the time. And sometimes I call myself, I'm like, Thompson, what are you thinking? I get mad, I call myself names or something, just to get by it and go, all right, get focused, come on. And because the harsher I am on myself, the more I remember it the next time and don't go there the next time. So that's my trick. Do you have any tricks you use to keep yourself from negative thought these days?
Not really, no. It's just, having to catch yourself before you allow yourself to go past that point. And I just have to really be intentional about catching myself.
I know you had a real mental problem with races at one point in time. You had a really hard time pushing yourself past that point of that initial pain.
Yeah.
And that's really your improvement has come not as a result of fitness as much as it has come as a result of your being able to push your brain past where it thinks it can go.
Right.
And How do you think you've been able to do that? How have you been able to get your brain refocused in an area where you can get past that initial pain and go, I can handle more?
Honestly, I have no clue. I remember just getting to that point constantly and just getting so frustrated with myself. And my mom would always tell me, she's like, Kayla, you did it at practice. All you got to do is do it on, race day. You've done it at practice. You already know you can do it. And I guess in my mind, I just didn't think of it like, oh, I've already done that. I can do it again. And so I really don't know. But it's been so great to get past that point.
Yeah. Well, your current coach kind of designs those workouts sometimes to be hard enough that they're harder than races so that it's easier to push past into races. When your practices make you push harder than your races do, it makes it easier to push yourself in the race, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I even told you the end of this season, I had a friend come up to me and I was on my 2-week break and I was like, Dean, can I go running? And you were like, no, you cannot go running. You're mandatory 2 weeks. And I was like, but I just want to go running. I think that's the addicted part, is because I was like, but Dean, I just want to go running. Like, just let me go running. And I've even had Riley, as texted me. She's like, Kayla, I just want to go running. And I'm like, Dean, you have created monsters.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. All right. Here's the last question. What hard thing is out there for you to accomplish that you haven't attempted? Is there anything else like that for you? Is there something you've always wanted to do but you haven't done?
I think there will always be an element of something that I want to do but I haven't done. But as of right now,
what's the big
really.
thing right now? There's got to be something big you want to do.
I would like to run a half marathon one day. And that seems like the longest runs I've ever done is probably a 10-miler. And so, they think, oh, that's only, 3 miles longer. But it just seems like that word half marathon is like, makes your eyes get real big.
You could totally do that. You could do that today if you wanted to. I remember when Debbie, my wife, always wanted to jump out of an airplane and with a parachute, and so we did that for her birthday one year, and she was so excited. And you watched her, and you could see a little bit of nervousness in her. But you know who was way more nervous than her?
You.
Me. I was the one that was. You could see it. I was really crazy nervous in that thing, way more nervous than she was. It was way outside my comfort zone to jump out of an airplane. And I remember we were on the airplane, and they said, listen, here's what a lot of people will say. A lot of people will say, why would anybody jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Well, make sure you tell them this. This is not a perfectly good airplane.
Oh, no. That's exactly what you want to be told.
So, yeah.
The things you do for your wife.
I'll tell you what. I may try something really hard this July, actually. I'm thinking about going to, there's a national championships for masters athletes, and I'm thinking about running 4 races in 4 days. I'm thinking about running the 5K on a Thursday, the steeplechase on a Friday.
Oh, I want to see that.
The 10K on a Saturday, and then the 1,500 on a Sunday.
Oh, you could do that.
Sounds no big deal, right?
I'll go watch you.
Oh, no problem. It'll be
From all the times that you watched me, I will go watch you suffer now.
So you can watch me suffer. Yeah. You were there when I ran that mile, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you watched me suffer that day.
Oh, it's so good.
I've tried most of the things I've wanted to try in my life at this point. I've been around long enough, but I have always thought it would be cool to run the full length of the Appalachian Trail. I've always thought that would be fun to do. I'm not usually a trail runner, but just the idea of doing the AT, I think, would be cool. But the other thing that I know that I always thought when I was younger, I always wanted to ride my bicycle across the United States, all the way across the United States.
Wow.
And that just doesn't hold the same fascination it once did. I don't know why, but that one's just not getting me anymore. But mainly, this is the thing that I would like to do. I would like to be a bolder witness for Christ. I remember a guy one time. It was actually, I saw him at Fast Break Athletics is where I was.
Wow.
Where a couple of the girls on our team, their sister works at Fast Break Athletics. And I was in that store when this guy came in there, and he was just talking with folks, and he was so bold, but it wasn't an in-your-face kind of way.
Yeah.
It was, hey, I got this great news I want to share with you. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he was so bold about it. And I've thought about that guy a lot. I mean, this has been probably 10 years ago that I saw this guy. I still think about him today. That's how impactful that guy was to me. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy that everybody looks at and goes, that guy is just so full of Christ that he can't help but let him out.
Yeah.
That's my big, bold goal. What do you think of that one?
I think that's a really good one.
While you're working hard to keep your body in shape physically, the music you listen to while you run can help keep you in shape spiritually. We've partnered with J Radio to put together a group of running playlists by Dean, Lane, Holly, myself, and others that you hear here on the Run for God podcast. Plus, you can listen to a playlist put together by members of Run Club just like you. Check out the whole station of Run for God playlist at jradio.com and in the J Radio app.
All right, we are back. And remember that you can send questions to dean@runforgod.com. If you've got a question, if you're part of Run Club and you're sending me emails, I'm answering them. Now, I may not answer it like really quick. Like when Kayla emailed me, I got back with her within the hour. I can't promise you I'll get back with you within the hour. But I will get back to you. So if you've got questions, let me know. Dean@runforgod.com. If you don't know about Run for God and you just happened up on this podcast, you need to go to runforgod.com or runforgodrunclub.com to learn more about becoming a Run Club member. We are doing this thing this year called the Couch to Marathon program. And so we've had folks who weren't even runners who are going to try to run a marathon in a year. And so fascinating, fun to watch. Some people are doing some great things right now. You need to become a part of it. You might not need to be part of the Couch to Marathon program right now, but you need to be part of Run Club, and then you need to get into the Couch to Marathon program next year because we'll do it again next year. And we also want to hear your story. You know, Kayla just shared her story. Great story. And I'm sure there are people out there who can identify with a lot of what she talked about. Well, we want to hear your story. You have a story. So why don't you share it with us? You can submit that at runforgod.com or runforgodrunclub.com. And maybe you'd like to share it live. Kayla's right here, right now, sharing her story live. So you can do that. Yeah. So, all right. So we I already mentioned that. I ran across your prospective student questionnaire is what it's called.
Oh.
And you were, you've been a much faster runner than you were ever before.
Yeah, I'm looking at those times. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your favorite thing about being a college athlete?
Oh, goodness. You know, you travel a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, you're gone a lot of weekends. And I love the traveling. But I also love the relationships I've made with the girls and just the friends I've had. It's just so encouraging. And the people I've met along the way. Yeah. You know, I don't think I could have done and do college without being an athlete because, you know, running is kind of like a getaway. And so, you know, you can have the stresses of life and the stress of, you know, college and finals and all of that. And just having an outlet and being good at an outlet, it's really nice.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you feel like there's a lot of extra demands on you? I mean, you're out there and you're representing your school. So when we travel, it's not just a matter of going out there to run a race. You're representing your school, which is an important thing. And there's expectations for you to perform. Your coach expects you to do well. And do you feel like there's a lot of extra demands on you these days?
Yeah. You have to maintain, a certain standard to maintain your eligibility. And so there's little things like that, are most definitely more demanding. But I think also something I had to get used to was people coming up to me and being like, "Are you Kayla?" And I was like, "Yes, how do you know me?"
Yeah.
And, because your face and your name are out there, a lot more. It doesn't take long to Google search Kayla Mattox, Dalton State, and find my picture.
Yeah.
And, having people that I don't know who I am, was something that took a while to get used to.
Yeah, that's funny. When I'll tell you a funny story. When I was I had moved to South Georgia. I was a runner in high school and college, and I was pretty good. People anybody who followed elite running in the state of Georgia knew who I was, right? But I had moved to South Georgia. I hadn't been running, but I thought I would run a mile. They had a all-comers track meet, and I thought I would go run a mile on the track just to see kind of how I could do. And nobody there was going to know me because we were in South Georgia, right? And so I thought this is going to be cool. So I took no more than 1 to 2 steps onto the track when somebody goes, "Hey, aren't you Dean Thompson?" I'm like, "Oh, no." And then I embarrassed myself by running.
Oh, that's nice.
By running slower than I've ever run in my life. So, it was good stuff. So I know you want to be an ambassador for Christ, too. You think that's more difficult or easier as an athlete? Does it make any difference?
I think it's all about your attitude about it. You have to understand that, you do have people looking at you and watching you, and even when you don't realize, somebody's always watching you. And so you have to really be careful about what you say to someone, but also what you say when nobody's around or you think nobody's around. And so it can be difficult, but it also opens up opportunities to witness to people.
Yeah.
And so in that aspect, it's easier.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a good perspective. All right. Do you want to run, or do you just do it because it's good for you? If you've never felt it before, you can learn to crave the run. It is time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. This week it's called Crave the Run. How much do you want to go out to run? The world is full of runners who do it out of necessity. They reason that it's good for them, so taking time to run is worth putting oneself through the discomfort of a run. How many times have we heard, "No pain, no gain"? Yeah, the run is supposed to hurt, right? Oh, sure, we've all been through those runs that seem easy and effortless, but that's not the usual day. Most days are tough. Most days feel like there is resistance from your body as you take those steps. It's all in the process. It comes with the territory. It's part of the deal. It's just the way it is. But does it have to be that way all the time? No, it doesn't. Does it need to be that way sometimes? Probably. But let me tell you what I mean. We're never going to get to a time when every run is like riding on a magic carpet. Physiologically, it can't happen. Mentally, it won't happen. And practically, it just doesn't work that way. But you can get to a place where you enjoy the run, even to a point where you can't wait to do it. You want to be able to crave the run. The word crave means to feel a powerful desire for something. It's what happens when we fall in love with something or someone, right? So, can we fall in love with running? Well, I say yes. And I think it's more than simply understanding that running is good for you. We know eating kale is good for us, and we may even do it from time to time, but we do it because we want to, but do we do it because we want to or because we know it's good for us? Most of us would say the latter. Kale isn't bad, but no one I know will tell you it's their favorite. I keep peanut butter pretzels next to my desk. I love them. I want to reach for one right now. we want to get to a point in our running life where we want to run like I want to reach for a peanut butter pretzel. So how do we get there? Well, I think it's all about feeling. Peanut butter pretzels make me feel good, mostly because of the way they taste. But I also know they're a fairly nutritious snack. Running makes you feel better too. You sleep better, you maintain a lower weight, and you have more energy throughout the day when you run. Those are facts that are not in dispute. And all we have to do is recognize it. When we connect the feeling of running with the physiological facts, we should crave the run. It's just that simple. It's the same way with God. We know when our relationship is strong with Him, we feel better. The byproducts of that relationship are contentment, joy, and peace. We should use those feelings to guide us to more intense prayer and time spent in our Bibles. John 15:5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. When we are part of Him, we bear much fruit. When we are apart from Him, we can do nothing. We bear no fruit. Once again, the definition of the word crave is to feel a powerful desire for something. Do you crave your time with God? Is He the first one you run to when you have questions? Does He guide all that you do because you want to feel connected to Him? We have to connect through our feelings. First, we have to realize where those feelings come from. In the case of running, we have to realize that we get extra energy and a more alert feeling when we do it. In our relationship with God, we have to realize that being part of Him is much better than being apart from Him. Crave the run. Right after you do that Bible study you've been craving for the past 24 hours. So I put this question here. Do you ever find yourself wanting to run? But you just told the story.
Yeah.
of you wanting to run and me telling you couldn't run.
Yes.
Do you know how hard it is for your coach to tell you not to run? I don't know if you have a real appreciation for just how difficult that is for those words to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, you kind of looked at me like, well, I want you to run.
Yeah.
But
do you ever find yourself wanting to read your Bible or pray? Do you find yourself in those situations where you're like, I need to pick up my Bible?
yes. Yeah. There comes a times when when you get caught up in the world and you're just like, I just need to get away. I just need to go read my Bible and pray and be with the Lord. And when you do that, you feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
But, I struggle with, being intentional about it. It doesn't come easy for me to just pick up my Bible every day and read.
Yeah.
But, I need to. And the feeling I have afterwards is just so rewarding and so comforting. And
yeah, that's awesome. I remember when I was a human resources manager, we had this whole plant full. We had 500-600 people in our plant, and so I can remember days just feeling overwhelmed, and days where it's like it was just one problem walking through my door after another, right? And I would intentionally get up and go out and just walk through the plant and talk with people, and it would make me feel so much better. And, reading our Bible is kind of like that. Prayer is kind of like that. It's kind of like the world feels like it's closing in on you. And you're like, if I can just get closer to God, I can push all of those walls away and feel the space that's around me and the peace that He gives you. That's great. We have so many things to do, We just feel like we have to check all those things off.
Yeah.
And then that becomes what we do. And that's why you have a hard time finding time to read your Bible, right? Because
Yeah.
you have all those things you want to check off and that you want to do. And sometimes it's hard. I'm fortunate because I'm a coach and I work in ministry. And so it's a little bit easier for me to crave the run and to crave the Bible study because that's what I'm involved in every single day. But that's still work, right? I'm still working. I mean, right now I'm working, but I enjoy what I do, and so it makes it a little bit easier because I just want to get up every day and I want to go do it. And I realize, and this is the way we should all be, we should all realize the fortunate circumstances of our life. And my fortunate circumstances of being able to work with Run for God and coach and do the things that I do, where my life kind of revolves around running, is like a dream come true for me. And I never take that for granted, just how fortunate I am to be doing what I do. And everybody out there should be of the same mind. You have something in your life that you can be really thankful for. You mentioned your friends, and I'm sure I can hear it in your voice. You know, you're really, really thankful for those people being in your life. You're thankful for all those parents who poured into you. And it's really good for us to take a step back and realize, as much tension as there is in our lives sometimes, as much friction as there is, as much hassle as there is in our lives sometimes, there's an awful lot to be thankful for, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
And I think when you start focusing more on the good things, the bad things don't seem as bad. Because you're surrounded, there's so many more good things out there than there are bad.
You're absolutely right. 100%.
If you've ever participated in any sport, you've probably met a great coach. Great coaches inspire us to do more than we ever thought possible. You can be the leader that helps others achieve things they never thought possible. You, yes, you have the ability and the opportunity to be that person. All you need is a heart to help people and the ability to follow a plan. The Run for God 5K Challenge will come ready to help you inspire those around you. The step-by-step guide will direct you how to plan, pray, and train people both physically and spiritually. You can help them become more fit in their health and in their walk with Christ. Share your passion. Go to runforgod.com to find out how to inspire others to accomplish big things.
All right, so we are back, and Kayla, you went to a really strict high school, didn't you?
Oh, it was so strict.
So what was it like being homeschooled?
You know, I think people have this mindset of, oh, you're homeschooled, like you're such a nerd, and but I don't know, not really. It's not easy, as people think. Because you still have standards that you have to meet, and there's a lot of figuring it out on your own, because, you know, if you're in public school, you have a teacher who specifically knows that content, and, you know, sometimes you just have to, like, teach yourself, and you rely a lot on Google, Googling stuff.
Yeah. So what was your favorite thing about being homeschooled?
Oh, sleeping in.
Fair enough.
Sleeping in, yes. But, you know, I also got to make my own schedule. And so, you know, if I had something come up, or, you know, I was going to be gone all day, you know, I could take that day off, and then for another day I'd have to just, you know, catch up on my work or something. And so my schedule was really flexible, and I was able to build, you know, how I wanted to structure my day.
You know, I'll share something with you that I always looked at people like that who are able to make their own schedule, and I thought, man, gosh, that's so unusual to be able to do that. Because I was working in the corporate world for so many years, I thought, well, that was the only way that you did things. You got up and you went to work in the morning, and you came home in the evening, and so you had to plan everything around that.
Yeah.
And then I left that job, and now I'm in a job where I'm like you. I mean, there's certain things I have to get to, just like you, but I can plan a lot of stuff around a lot of things, and I'm realizing that there are a lot more of those people out there than I ever thought there were.
Yeah.
So what was your least favorite thing about being homeschooled?
Oh, well, I'm an extrovert, and so being around people really fills me up inside. And so being by myself was something that I had to learn to like. Yeah. And I had to learn that it's okay to be by yourself sometimes. And I didn't have, you know, a group of friends that would just spontaneously be like, hey, let's go hang out and go do this. And so sometimes I look back and I kind of have a little bit of regret for not doing that. But I also learned so much in that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So what do you like better? You like track or cross country better?
Well, if you had asked me in high school, I would have said track because I was shorter distances and it didn't seem as hard. But I have learned to really enjoy cross country more.
Yeah.
It's one race and you're over with.
Well, I've always said this about cross country and track. I love the competition of track, but the camaraderie of cross country. That's the way I always looked at it. Yeah. So do you ever watch track and field on television? You ever follow the Olympics or anything like that?
Not as strategically as some do, but I'll turn it on whenever it's on and watch it.
So are you excited about the Olympics upcoming?
Yeah.
Are you going to watch the Olympic trials at all?
Probably.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's I can't wait. I mean, I'm just like, Olympic trials, how long, how many days?
Yeah, no, I'm not like that.
Yeah, I guess so. I get so excited about it, and there's so much going on that's crazy right now. There's a guy, I don't know if you've heard the name Hobbs Kessler.
I don't think
Hobbs
so.
Kessler is a high school runner who runs up in Michigan, up in Riley territory. And,
that place.
Yeah. He just ran a 3:34 1500.
Wow.
Which actually beat the college best time.
Wow.
That's how fast it was. And so he's just phenomenal. So he's probably going to be in the Olympic trial. He's got the Olympic standard. I mean, he could be in the Olympics. Now I think there's 3 guys from the United States will probably beat him out of those spots, but that's amazing. So stories like that are just fun to watch, to see how they do. I think right now in track and field, and we're in this stage of we're going from the old guard, the people who have been around a long time and are household names, to these new people like Hobbs Kessler. Matt Centrowitz is probably going to be in the Olympics in the 1500 just because he's a professional. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to qualify, and he's great. He's a world champion for that matter, a gold medalist. So anyway, it's fun to watch the changing of the guard as that changes. So who do you have a favorite runner?
I don't really follow it as much to say that I have a favorite, but I think if I had to say, probably Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shalane.
Yeah.
Shalane Flanagan. Yeah, she's a good one for sure. I watched the other day. It was a workout, and it was somebody else, Gwen Jorgensen, who's actually an Olympic gold medalist in the triathlon, who is now running, and she was doing a workout. Well, Shalane did the mile repeats with her. So she's retired now.
Yeah.
She can still get in there and mix it up and run, 5 flat for the mile 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
So she's still pretty quick. All right. It's time for a trivia question for this week. So in keeping with our Olympic theme of these past several weeks, we've been kind of on this Olympic kick. So I'm going to stay there. There was a man who won the 800-meter run in the 1972 Munich Olympics. There were a couple of peculiar things about him. Tell me what he wore that was a little odd, and the manner in which he won the Olympic 800 final race. Do you have any idea? You don't have any idea?
No.
Do you? All right.
I'm thinking something a little odd. Oh.
There's something different about him than everybody else. And if you go back and even you look at it now, you go, that was odd for even then, and you wouldn't see it now either. So anyway, I'm giving out too many hints now. So check it out. Now you can send your answer to dean@runforgod.com. Please don't send that to me through Messenger or any other way. Send it to dean@runforgod.com. The first person to answer correctly will get a Run Club box. We need to know your T-shirt size, so send us your T-shirt size when you send us your answer to dean@runforgod.com. All right, every week we share a reason why running is so awesome. And this week, the reason why running is so awesome is accessibility. Think about this. Can you think of another sport where you can basically run the same course as the professionals?
No.
I mean, I have been at the Peachtree Road Race where I actually could put my hand on the fastest guy in the race right from where I was standing because I was in the second row. That was so awesome, right? We get to run the exact same thing. I think that's cool. Almost anybody can consider running a marathon or finishing a marathon. Even Kayla Mattox can run a marathon. And it's interesting if you look at average marathon times over the years. Back in the 70s, the average marathon time was way faster than it is today. You find that interesting?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
No.
Because so many more people know they can run a marathon today. Back then, it was only the good runners who thought that they could do a marathon. Now, everybody and their brother thinks they can do a marathon, and so they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. So, yeah, that's great. And what? If you can't run a marathon, well, maybe running a 5K is what you want to do. So go out there and do that. So many people understand what running is. They may not understand all the intricacies of running and all the training theory and things like that, but people understand what running is and that it's hard.
Yes.
If I asked you, what does a left guard do on the football field? Could you tell me?
No.
No. Nobody knows. You know, I mean, people who are into football know.
I can tell you what the quarterback does.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, it's a whole different ball game. But in running, everybody understands what running is. You just got to run faster.
You just go out there and do it.
One foot in front of the other. Yeah.
That's what my grandfather tells me. He's like, just go out there. It's one foot in front of the other, a little bit faster than the other person.
That's right. That's it. It's that simple. I remember going to the Peachtree Road Race one time and thinking, this the first time this hit me that we got to do this was back in the 80s when I was standing on the starting line, and there was kind of a separation between where I was and where Craig Virgin was. Craig Virgin was a world cross-country champion twice. And there he is right there in front of me. And I thought, man, that is so awesome. And I'm going to run the same course, albeit much slower.
Yeah.
I think I finished 6 minutes behind him. So, all right. Our motivational thought of the week. This comes from somebody named Kayla Mattox. I asked her for her favorite quote, so she gave me this one. Now, this quote is unknown. Nobody knows who came up with this quote, but it is a really, really good one. So here's the quote. Never regret a day in your life. Good days give happiness. Bad days give experience. Worst days give lessons. And best days give memories. I like that. There's always something to learn from every day. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty proud of this lady over here. She's done a great job. She's come a long way. Kayla, anything you want to say as we wrap up?
No.
All right. Anything you want to tell people out there who are doubting that they can do something?
I would say just try it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
Amen. Can't say any better than that.
And I'm sure they can do it. You'll find that you actually can do it.
You will. Absolutely. All right, everybody's doing great. You can continue to progress. You're doing fantastic. Keep up the great training. Keep up supporting one another on that Facebook page. Y'all are doing such a great job with that. And may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.